Rishi Maharaj, the CEO of Disclosure. Good morning, Rishi. How are you?
I'm fine. Good morning to you and good morning to your listeners.
Good to have you here. The gentleman who I've been trying to get out, he's got my respect. He knows this for a long time. Been trying to get him out of his home, and it's not always easy, so I generally settle for the telephone. But this morning, I asked him nicely, would you please come down? He acquiesced. He is here. Dr. James, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Rennie, and I'm strong and good. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Good morning, Ricky.
Good morning.
Well, I see that. You've been working out, haven't you?
Well, I keep fit.
Yeah, hello. he walked in here. We took a group picture. I'm going to let you all know. We took a group picture, and he said, you got a hole in your stomachs? The only people who did it was Rishi and I. I go like, what are you trying to do? Show us up?
Oh, goodness.
All right. Gentlemen, it's good to have you here in two capacities. I'm going to start with Dr. James here, first of all. Doctor, a lot has been going on here. Part of what I just discussed with the attorney who just left us, the whole question of property tax. I want to deal with it, not from the court side, because we dealt with that part. I want to deal with it from the whole question of politicizing situations, taking something in the political arena where it does not belong, or maybe it does belong. The general feeling of telling folks not to pay taxes. The Prime Minister said it's not going to happen. In other words, they're not going to use the court to stop me from doing what I do. What is your reading of what some seem to believe is a coordinated effort by the opposition to stop or slow government by taking them repeatedly to court on initiatives like property taxes?
So let's start off by asking, what is it the opposition is claiming about the actions that they're taking? They are keeping away from answering that question. What is it they're doing? We know that they are in the courts. They are looking for the courts to determine whether the tax is legal and whether the government should be collecting the tax and so on, right? They're asking the courts to do this. Now, and the people who are doing so are clearly agents of the UNC, although it appears on the surface that they're doing so in private capacities. For example, Maharaj, he doesn't say that he's representing the UNC, but we know that because he was lately of the UNC and so on, right? So the thing is, they have gone to court with it. Are they merely seeking to have a judicial resolution of the problem? Is that all they're interested in? I don't think so at all, given, as I said, the people involved, and given the fact that the property tax has emerged from the attempt on part of the government to keep an election promise. An election promise that in part is responsible for getting them into office. So you can't escape the political character of the imposition of a property tax. You can't get away with that. Any party could do that. In fact, the position of the UNC at the time, PP partnership government and so on, was that they were against it. That was a political position. So now that they are in opposition, they continue to be against it. And now we have people who are associated with them who are taking the matters to the High Court for a determination. So there is a clear attempt, and it might be part of the politics, but there's a clear attempt on the part of the UNC to bring in the judiciary on a matter that is fundamentally political.
Yes, just policy.
It's political policy. I mean, you can't. In fact, the PNM has said that their manifesto, as political parties have claimed, their manifesto is policy, is government policy. So, and I'm not blaming the UNC for saying that they are against it or they are taking it to the court, and I think that is their right. But the people must understand that they are depending not on the people, but on the courts to solve a political question. And I don't think the UNC can escape such a conclusion.
The voice you hear is that of Dr. Winford James, former senior lecturer at the University of the West Indies, political analyst, who's taking the time to be here with us along with Rishi Maharaj. Just before I get to Rishi, will this attempt then, because you seem to be in concurrence with what is uttered by the Prime Minister, that some of these things are taken in the political arena to destabilize or to make the country ungovernable, do you concur that that is one of the intents here? And two, do you think it will work?
Well, it might be their attitude to destabilize. I don't see that there is instability as a result of the action just yet. I think the Prime Minister may have been a little bit excessive with the language. Mayhem and what is the other word he used? Chaos and mayhem. I don't think it's reached there, if I understand mayhem from my understanding of what has happened in the rest of the world.
I guess the provision there would be those intent on making, on creating.
Yeah, but
intent on, as
but they must have evidence that not about the intent, because you can speculate about the intent, but there must be the seeds of mayhem and the seeds of chaos available right now that we can see. I don't think that the public is arrayed against the government. I don't think they have taken to the streets. I don't think anything of that has happened, like that has happened. So I am thinking that might be a little bit premature, especially if you allow that anybody can go to the court for relief.
And he did say that. That is the Prime Minister did say that. He said it is the right of everybody to do that.
Yeah, but he's playing politics as well by saying, the people, you must examine this. I mean, here are two political parties, and one of them is going off the political stage, so to speak, and going into the judiciary to get a solution, rather than coming up with an alternative to this. Here they are saying, let the court decide. And then, of course, there's a question of manipulation of the court system.
Oh, Lord,
No, I'm just saying that it has led to that. That's all I'm saying. It has led to that. People now saying, hey, but here is a judge who seems to have been focused on for hearing these matters. Why nobody else? Those questions arise.
We coming there too, you know.
Yeah, but you can't separate the two issues.
You can't. Yeah. Dr. Winford James, political analyst. I've got to switch across to Rishi Maharaj, CEO of Disclosure Today. Rishi, you hear in the area of accuracy. Are you comfortable with the language used by politicians as far as guiding their flocks? Two of them specifically I want to go to. One is don't pay the tax. The other one is that these people are coming to rob you. It was implied by Mr. Maharaj after the de-injunction was made. Accuracy is what we're talking about. Your business is accountability in government. Speak to that.
Well, I think each politician on the spectrum, I agree with Dr. James, in terms of both sides are looking at it from a political perspective as opposed to a policy perspective, and they're playing politics with the people. And both sides are speaking to their own constituents, you know, and speaking the language that the constituents would understand and would gravitate to. In terms of Dr. Rowley saying they're creating chaos and mayhem and wanting to destabilize, and then the members of the UNC on the other hand stating don't pay the tax, you know, because people are going to be coming to your home, seeing exactly what you're looking for and stuff like that, and wanting to market business in this time of national security and interest and stuff like that. So I think both parties, unfortunately, are using the language to play to their constituents and to get that sort of leverage on them to be able to get in some kind of validity. And I think it really does a distrust to exactly addressing what the needs are of the country at this time, which I think is getting lost in all of this smuggle in terms of the issues that we're facing as a country as a whole. It's not a east-west corridor thing versus a central-south thing. It's a Trinidad or Tobago thing. It's a Trinidad and Tobago situation that we're facing economically, socially,
but is
and
it
everything.
fair to equate both in this sense, where you have some politicians telling people break the law? I mean, essentially, by saying do not pay the tax, I mean, you are encouraging people to break the law.
It is, exactly. No, they are, exactly.
And that's why I'm worried about equating both of them.
Exactly. Well, yeah, if you look at both on its own merits, and it's just, as I say, it's unjust. And I think it really simplifies what is a very big problem that we're facing in the country in terms of revenue generation, in terms of being able to deliver goods and services to the population in all these different areas. And one of the reasons why the government has brought back the property tax is because there's a big revenue shortfall that we're facing. And it's proposed that this revenue tax would raise close to $500 million that will be used for goods and services and for other things to give back to the people, whether you're living wherever in the country. But I think politicians on the whole, I mean, the UNC, the game that they're playing is to show that they're still a viable alternative to the government and playing to their constituents to really solidify their hold following whatever debacle they had from the last election and trying to get to that. And I think that in itself is an injustice to dealing with the whole issue of what's going on in the country. And like Dr. James said, what are the alternatives? Have you addressed any alternatives to the property tax? And they have not. All they're saying it's unjust, it's going to create problems for the country, don't pay the tax, we open up the form in the public forum and stuff like that. And it just simplifies a very complex problem that we're facing right now.
You identified the money, the $500 million that the finance minister is hoping to get from property tax. And you say it's a time when the nation really needs it. Dr. James, I'm going to put this here. There is something that is a casualty here that I think is worth way more than $500 million. That's worth way more than $1 billion. When you encourage people, when you say things to erode institutions that are set up to govern, I think not now for $1 billion. I think not for 5 years for $1 billion. I think for 20 years for way in excess of $1 trillion. And confidence is gone. And that to me is quite disturbing, Dr. James.
I see. It is disturbing, but I don't know if I can go as far into the future as you have done. But coming out from what I've heard you say, I think more important to consider is that it's not simply the call to their constituents and whomever to not pay the tax. It is that if people are going to break the law if they don't pay the tax, then those who spur them on are also guilty of breaking the law. And therefore, the politicians that are encouraging people to break the law are aiding and abetting. And I believe they can be sent to jail.
I also hold very closely to that. Screaming fire in a crowded theater is something that I find rather disturbing. Before I get back to you, Rishi, I want to stay with Dr. James on this one. When I look at these things, I look at, for instance, the Taruba Stadium. However you feel about it, you feel about it. It's fine. When the nation is held ransom because you carry a protest that stops the nation. I mean, that day, the nation stopped. When people are encouraged to burn tires on the street, which is illegal, you understand? When you start telling people about keeping students away from schools, there are problems and people must protest in whichever way they want. But if you, as a member of parliament, a representative of the people, get into encouraging not the protest, which is legal, but the burning of tires in the street and stuff like that, there is a problem.
No, but you can't protest against keeping the law. If people are going out in the streets to break the law, the protest has to be wrong.
Right.
Once we determine that is the case. And my point is that the authorities have to prosecute the law.
Yes.
That is their function. They have to enforce the law. If it involves politicians, then that's unfortunate. But we didn't force them to. But there's another point that we need to pay attention to. People are not as enslaved to their political leadership as used to be the case. Lots of people who support you have independent minds to a certain extent. And they are going to weigh, whether it's the UNC or the PNM, it doesn't matter, but they're going to weigh the reasonableness of their calls, of the calls upon them. And you're going, we do not know yet that the UNC's call to their constituents, to all of us, has been successful. We don't know that. What was for a short while successful is the matter taken before Frank Rampersad. And then, of course, we know what happened to that. In 2 instances, he was overruled. The higher court overruled him. Sipasad, what did I say? Frank Sipasad. He was overruled. In other words, the court system is working. The court system could have agreed with him as well, the High Court, but that is not what happened. Right. So he made a mistake. We have to accept that, because if we believe in the court, then it's clear he made a mistake. And therefore there's a precedent now to be followed. Now, so I don't see yet that the people have put their support behind the UNC on this matter where they are called upon to break the law. I don't see that just yet. I don't think it will happen, actually. I actually think our publics are very, very smart. I actually think so.
Then let me see.
And I don't know that we don't like violence, you know. I mean, we are cowardly. with respect to the protection of our person and property. So we are cautious in that regard, but we do like to talk a lot and grand charge. We make a lot of noise, but that doesn't mean that we will go out there and take this to back up a political stance that we cannot ourselves intellectually on the basis of evidence support.
I like the grand charging. I understand a little peacock. I understand grandiose behavior under hustings. I do have a problem. I'm going to switch to Rishi just for a quick moment. Rishi, you were with disclosure today. Politicians screaming, as I said before, fire in a theater. I find it something must be addressed. Misleading and putting fear among citizens. Here is the exact quote from the former Agriculture Minister, Devian Maharaj, after the injunction was overturned. He said, "Putting out property ownership information is like disclosing information to bandits. So don't let bandits in your home." Now, we understand, as I had the attorney before here articulate, you're going to submit your form and they tax you, or you don't submit without penalty now, or you don't submit and then they send you their assessment. If they look at your assessment and it looks inadequate, they send somebody to your home. So we know at some point the valuation, the department is going to send somebody to homes of some people. When you make the statement, disclosing the information is like disclosing information to bandits, so don't let these bandits in your home. Is this acceptable for a former minister, a politician to say?
Probably going to use some strong language here now, but I think it's idiotic. Primarily because if you take that judgment, and if you take that opinion as is, take it to a logical conclusion, then should you then submit information to any public office, any government system to access goods and services that may give you your banking information, to be able to access it, to be able to give information as to your employment, where you work and stuff like that, how long you've worked there and stuff like that. When certain government departments have to sometimes, I know for example the Ministry of Social Development, when they're assessing for your pension and stuff like that, sometimes they do visit your home to be able to do an assessment and stuff like that. Because if you take it to a logical conclusion from what he's saying there, then by extension you should not then submit any kind of these kind of what you call personal information to the government service, because then it opens yourself up to scrutiny. And I think that itself is idiotic. I think most people would agree with that, and I agree with Dr. James in the fact that let's go back to 2010. Was it 2010? The election when we had the anti-tax campaign, when the whole idea of the property tax came out from the then administration and stuff like that, and the actual distrust that many people at the time had. And it's a wider cross-section of the community with regards to the tax and what the tax is about, and all these different things, and the arbitrary way that it was done then. 5 years on now, well, not more, 7 years on now. I mean, obviously the economics have changed, circumstances have changed. A lot more information has been put out there in the public domain. You realize now a lot of people, although the same property tax has come back in the same way it was up from 2010, no amendments have been made. There doesn't seem to be that much foray from different segments of the community. Obviously, you had the political part of it, and that's fine. That's always going to happen. But that sense of fear, that sense of not wanting this whole idea of property tax, in my opinion, has dissipated.
You see, there are a couple of things. Dr. James, you've been around for quite some time, observing this, right? Because there are a couple of things here. Because the intelligentsia can pause. The intelligentsia can get nuance. The intelligentsia can look at a statement and go, as you just said, come on, that's idiotic and that's ridiculous. And that's because those in the baseball game understand baseball. There are many people who don't understand and cannot pass the language. So when they hear a statement made like that, you drive fear in a group of people. And that is why I find it so divisive. That's why I find it so dangerous. And that's why, even though Dr. James was rather judicious in saying, I don't see it over the long term, that is what I worry about over the long term. Because if you plant in people's mind, this is not working. Can you talk to any Trinidadian right now and talk about the Integrity Commission? They look at you and they laugh. Oblivious of who may have destroyed it or how it may have been destroyed. That's what I'm talking about.
I don't want you to underestimate the intelligence of the man not so educated out there.
Did not mean to imply that, but
I know that. I know that. So I'm just saying that with some caution and some respect as well. There are people out there who probably have not gone to tertiary school, who sometimes display an informedness that is superior to the informedness of people who've been
Indeed.
to tertiary school. Just want to say that.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people who discuss these issues wherever they have their meeting spots, like in bars and recreation grounds and stadiums, wherever, in taxis, they talk. And when you listen, you know that people are very sensible and they are not going to take what a person like Devant Maharaj says at face value. They are going to be critical. And by the way, may I say this? We must not speak of Mr. Maharaj, not Rishi here, but Devant, as if he has some high public profile, as if his credibility is so high up in our consciousness
Beyond
that we
reproach.
must pay attention. I don't think, and I'm not trying to be to dismiss Mr. Maharaj. I'm just saying it simply does not exist.
Gotcha.
He does not have that social standing to command immediate acquiescence to his views or acceptance of his views.
The moral authority is in
Not
question.
Not him. Other people perhaps,
I hear
but
you.
not him.
I
So
hear
it's
you.
coming from the wrong person. Peace to Mr. Maharaj, but I don't mean that in an offensive way. I just mean that he has not yet developed that sort of public credibility to command, to make people follow him without due thought. That's the point.
11:31 in the morning, Dr. Winford James, the voice you're hearing. The other voice is that of Rishi Maharaj, CEO of Disclosure Today. I'm going to close the book on that side, and I want to get into the judiciary. I've got to go there. The AG says he has faith in the system. But many say it is too much of a coincidence for one judge, Judge C. Prasad, to get all these high-profile cases. They even harken back to the times in 2013 when there was mention of him as the possible president of the Republic.
Wow.
The question here then is, do you feel as jaded as it seems to be the view of many on the internet, and suspicious that judge shopping is something members of the judiciary will not agree with, but in fact it is happening? I'll start with you, Dr. James, and then go to Rishi for that.
I think the evidence suggests that we should be cautious, and more than cautious, suspicious. It cannot be, in statistical terms, statistical probability, it cannot be mere coincidence that the same judge is looking after matters brought by the UNC against the PNM administration, or whatever. That you have to be suspicious. We don't know for sure, but going by the evidence, it looks suspicious, and hopefully the outcry against it might result in changes later on. But we will look to see the extent to which that continues to be the case, because the UNC is not going to halt in its modus operandi of trying to get the courts to rule. They have not been very successful, by the way. We must also go back and look at the history of the choice of judge in cases brought by the UNC against the executive. We must go back, and that's the work of the press, by the way. They don't pay me to do that, Rennie B. They pay people like you, I imagine. And I don't have the time, and actually not the interest either, to go back into the past and do the research and see whether there is a pattern that emerges. But in the recent past, it looks suspicious.
Bad optics. at
And
best.
yes, and we must keep that suspicion until it evaporates because of contrary behavior. It hasn't happened yet. I am going to look to see what other cases will go before Frank C. Prasad.
So let me see if I use this in the context that we're speaking about. You will reserve, or rather you will withdraw your opinion modified according to the events that reveal and reapply. That is one of the MOs they say that's used for judge shopping.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but slide that on inside of there. Rishi, your view on that?
It's a very tricky slope that you're walking, because now you're looking out on or trampling on one of the institutions that's supposed to be the guardian of our democracy. That's the purpose of the judiciary. I mean, separation of powers, the executive, legislative, and judicial branch. And judicial branch is supposed to be the branch that has the check and balance over all action taken by the state. Whether it be the government or state entities and stuff like that. So there's that. It creates questions in the minds of citizens. I'm not saying whether it happens or not, because I don't know. I mean, I know, for example, when you do apply and you do send in your application to the judiciary for a judicial review or something like that, there's a process that takes place in terms of how they assign cases to judges and stuff like that. I don't know how that process works. But obviously, based on what we've seen in the media, in terms of what is being reported as to the frequency, and like Dr. James said, the statistical probability of it happening, I mean, it does raise questions and concern. I think it's a questions that obviously the judiciary needs to answer in order to start back maintaining that sense of trust in our institutions, especially the judiciary. I think that trust, I mean, given over what happened over the judiciary over the last month, that sense of trust in the judiciary has slowly started to erode. Not in regards to this, but then we talk about the whole questions with the CJ and those debacles and stuff like that. It has raised questions in people's minds as to exactly what is happening in the judiciary. And I think we need to get that trust back because, like I said, they are the guardians.
May I just slip in here and just
not
to cut you short too much, but in the last judgment, Frank C. Prasad spent one day and reviewed everything related to the case and produced a document 22 pages long by 3 a.m. of that, the next morning, but started sometime later in the 3 p.m. I believe.
3 a.m. It's at 7 p.m.
7 p.m.
and
finished. I'm a writer.
Some people said it was handed in at 3 in the morning. Other people say it may have been even before.
But even if it took another day to produce a 22-page judgment in that short space of time is suspicious. That is almost superhuman, and therefore it speaks to an intellect that is so superior that I haven't seen it in this country for a long time.
You see, Dr. James, you are into an area there, and it is one thing, and Rishi, I heard your skepticism in your response just now, or rather the advice of prudence, of providence. You're talking walk very gentle, but it does raise a point. If we are looking at something that seems almost too, I mean, the prior guest, Attorney Mosaisai, said this man, Judge C. Prasad, is exceptional. He gets work done. He turns over things fast, and that's how he gets cases.
Oh yeah, I mean,
but no. Allow me to finish this really quickly. But if with all of that, respecting all of that, you have a matter like this that is heard at 7 p.m. in the evening, and by the next morning you were able to supply a 22-page judgment, is it unreasonable for folks to look in and go like, wait a minute. Oh, by the way, the backlog in the courts is up to 5 years. Anyway, I mean, is it unreasonable?
Let me look at it, take it from this point of view. First of all, they applied for a judicial review, which is under the Judicial Review Act, and subject to. I mean, I'm not an attorney at law, but I've been around them many years to be able to have an understanding of. And I've actually disclosed that they has actually taken some actions for judicial review, actually, with regards to some of our freedom of information cases. And as far as I'm concerned, subject to correction, the threshold that you have to prove it's a very low threshold. Not saying that should be the case and everything should go through, but the threshold that the defendant has to make or the applicant has to make in order for a matter to be given the okay to get judicial review, and then for the injunction or whatever to be placed, it's a very low threshold as opposed to when you go to high court and when you go to court of appeal. That's one thing. Two, I mean, I've read some of Justice C. Prasad's judgment with regards to freedom of information. Because there are a lot of cases that have gone before over the last 7-8 years dealing with freedom of information, which is our bread and butter in disclosure today. And something I'm very... Okay. And in terms of the way that his writings and his judgments are, they're very great. I mean, I love them. I love the way that he goes through it. When you read it, I mean, not being a legal person myself, but going through his judgment, I look at the way that he words it and the way that he explains it and breaks it down. It allows any lay person to have a very good understanding. So his analytical mind is there. Right. So I mean, I want to take, at least for him, I think the issue for me in all that we're hearing has been going on is an issue of, and I go back to the issue of process and the issue of what process does the judiciary have in allocating cases to whatever judges? And do they look at it in terms of, well, okay, this person has got X amount of cases, maybe we need to put it somewhere else. What is the procedure and process? And I think that is something that has to be brought out there to the public. Now we're hearing these allegations that be making of quote-unquote favoritism to one judge, to people of a particular political party, as opposed to other judges that exist out there. What actually does happen when you make an application to the judiciary? What goes on when they get it, when they receive the application?
They say there's a computer program.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what they say.
Exactly. So I think...
And some people say the way you manipulate it is you put it in,
Right.
and if you find that you don't get who you want, you take it and you amend it and you put it in again.
There's
and,
also
and then you take it out and you amend it and you put it in again. Oh, good.
There's
Now it's
also
good.
judges that say, I am not hearing this case.
That's true.
Exactly.
That's true. That's
Or they may look at the schedule of a judge and say, okay, well, this one is a little more free as opposed. So we don't know.
I don't
so
want
that's
to
why I say that.
yes.
That's why I don't want to cast aspersion.
I'm not.
I think, from everything, I don't know the guy personally. But I mean, having read his judgments over the years and stuff like that, I love what he does and the way he thinks.
Let us be really
But
clear on this. I have not heard anybody.
Exactly.
And what prompted all this social outbursts is not because the man has not been meticulous in putting together and making it easy for the layman. No, it's not that. It's just the Clark Kent secret.
Right.
Most people want to know because it must be a Clark Kent secret
Oh my goodness.
to write 22 pages.
It's superior ability in the extreme.
Right, so that's
Mortals, you have a problem.
So
that's the problem.
So that's what I'm saying. It's the judiciary now has to come out now and say exactly what goes on. Maybe people look at their own process and realize maybe because of this question that have been raised, that again tramples on the integrity of judicial process, for which we must have a great trust and great faith in. Then now I think it's up to the judiciary now to come out and say, look, okay, we hear what's going on. And this is what happens, and we understand the outcry has been taking place, and maybe we need to relook. But I think the judiciary now has to come out now and put on the plate and say, okay, things have to be looked at.
I am going left to right all morning. The voice you just heard is that of Rishi Maharaj and, of course, Dr. Winford James, political analyst. We are discussing some of the issues before us. I'm going to stay on the right a little bit for disclosure. Let me stay on the right for a moment. Because Dr. James, I got to hold Dr. James for the Sea Bridge in a little while, and that's going to be him alone. But let me stay on the right with you for a moment. Disclosure. Full disclosure. Are you happy with the disclosure we have coming out of this debacle that confronts the judiciary right now?
No.
What do you think we
quick
should
answer.
be told that we have not been told?
I think
Because it's dynamic. Things are galloping.
everything has been happening, from the appointment of the judges to the whole issue of Chief Magistrate Marcia Caesars to exactly what went on in JLSC. Example, what
You mean sitting judge? She said, I'm still a judge.
as far as she concerned, she was forced to resign.
Yes.
Based on the headlines in the papers today. I think it all goes back to the whole idea of again, transparency and understanding and having trust in the process. The problem is, I remember a couple of years back reading a world value survey that was done throughout the world, and Trinidad and Tobago was one of the countries surveyed in that world value survey. And it says that we have the most least trusting country, one of the most least trusting countries in the world, 3% in terms of our trust.
The
So
trust of what?
Trust of everything that we hear, trust of what government tells us.
I merely ask you to
Trust-
repeat that because that's the point I made earlier about the $1 billion of integrity, of the erosion of confidence in our institutions.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
I'm talking. Please go ahead.
We are not a trusting population. We don't trust what we hear from the government. We don't trust what we hear from institutions that we have there to gather. So there's a whole question of trust. And I think this whole issue of the debacle in judiciary raises all kinds of different questions. And I think the judiciary needs to come out. Either I'm not sure the Chief Justice did it, if he apologized or anything like that, I'm not sure. But I think the whole because of the importance of the judiciary to our democratic process, to be in that pillar of standard of holding everyone else to account. I think to trample on that is deadly ground. And I think judiciary needs to come out, if not issue an apology, issue an explanation as to one. If mistakes happen. We're all not perfect. We're all human. People make mistakes. I mean, I remember I read up to last night former Chief Justice Delabaste's statement on this with regards to misrepresentation and stuff like that. And he says, if mistakes happen, mistakes happen. We're all human.
It's not misbehavior.
Exactly. It's not misbehavior, which is a total different thing. And you need to come up. We need to address what went on. What the issues, what the problems, was there something fell apart? Well, good. address it as anybody would do. Realize mistakes happen. Realize the process is not perfect and things happen, and now take steps to readjust it. But if you do like an ostrich and just dive your head into the sand and hope that everything will pass over and everything will blow over,
No, it's worse than that.
it's gonna cause more problems. In the future.
And how egregious is it to reach to the level that the judge had to resign? By the way, I just want to let you know before I go to Dr. James, I was a broadcast specialist on NBC News, CBS News, and CNN. So when you're looking across my resume, remember that. Oh, by the way, you're supposed to check on me because you're supposed to validate what I say. You're in charge of the JLSC too. Oh, a lot of things go on here. Dr. James.
I was saying it's more than what Rishi just said. It seems to be the case that Mrs. Ayres Caesar was pushed under the bus.
Somebody has to take the fall.
Somebody was. Yeah, she's the fall guy. I'm not saying she is, but it seems this way. But if I were to ask one question of the CJ, it would be: did you ask Mrs. Ayres Caesar if she had any part heard cases pending?
I'm reading her letter today as reported in the newspaper.
Yes.
She was asked the question. She said 28. She said, I got that from the note takers of the court system, and that is the number I give to him, 28.
Right. But then we found out it is 53.
And like I said to him, just what I had in my resume to Rishi, the people who are supposed to validate this is the JLSC. So I can tell them what I want, or I could honestly make a clerical error, or I could have been misinformed by the note takers. I hand you the information. But your Judicial Legal Service Committee, they are the ones to look at what I said and check it out.
Yeah,
and
but
if
they use people to check things out.
Hello.
So the point is, if it is that Mrs. Ayres Caesar said 28, based on how she was informed, the duty of the JLSC is to seek confirmation of that.
Thank you.
But when they seek confirmation, they go to people as well. Now, did the JLC seek confirmation? That would be the second question.
Due diligence.
Again,
Due diligence.
Again, come back to process and procedure.
Yeah.
What's the process? We know we all know the process. We all can tell exactly what the process is.
Yeah.
What is the procedure?
Yeah.
Was the procedure followed? Did the proper people go about and do what they had to do? Or did they say, well, this is the chief magistrate. She said 28 cases. I mean, she wouldn't be lying, obviously. We should take her word for it. So again, process is one thing, but then following the procedure, was there a breakdown
I
somewhere?
never thought I would be quoting Ronald Reagan, but I'm going to do it. Trust
people.
but verify.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why you're there.
In fact, I can't believe that confirmation was not done. I can't believe that. But as you were saying, mistakes can be made. But it does not exonerate anybody yet, because
That's right.
because if she declared that she had 28 cases that were part heard, then the question arises: can you appoint somebody as a judge until those 28? The number doesn't really matter. 53 as against 28, you still have part heard cases.
Yes.
So it appears from what I'm hearing, I haven't read her letter on today's Guardian, but it appears from what I'm being told that it is okay to appoint somebody with 28 part heard cases, but not 53. Now,
Is that a PTSD bus passing there? Careful, go back on the pavement. I'm sorry.
I don't quite understand that. So that still needs to be explained. Other things need to be explained as well, but I'll wait until you ask me.
Whenever he says that, it reminds me of my mother. She would go like, instead of asking me, did you do this in school today? She goes like, what did you do in school? I should know.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I want to go to the air bridge. I got to go to the air bridge. So if there's something else in this area you wanted to give an opinion on, I'll start with Dr. James first.
Well, before you go on to
Yes.
Seabridge, it's air bridge or Seabridge you want to go
Both
to?
bridges are bad, so it doesn't matter.
Well, come on, man. They can call it the Spirit and they call it the Express. The
Oh, my
Express goes
goodness.
slower than anything.
We probably should use planes on the sea bridge. Listen, I hear from comments on the Guardian report that Mrs. Ayres Caesar thinks that she was forced to resign. She resigned under duress. I'm having a difficulty processing that, because here is a judge, who is supposed to have a certain level of training, a level of mental development, and some experience, by the way, saying that I was forced to write it. I mean, what on that alone, I would not want her around. You can't come and tell me. You cannot come and tell me that against your will, you signed something you did not believe in. Did they hold a gun to her head? What is it they held to her head? Now, in the absence of information, I believe there was no gun held to her head. And therefore, there was something at her that said to her, I had better sign this letter. In other words, there was some latent acceptance of either her lack of qualification for the job or acceptance that she may have misled the JLSC for her to say, I signed the letter. She was an adult, not only an adult, but one of our more...
Chief Magistrate.
Yeah, Chief Magistrate, one of our more accomplished jurists. So that's difficult. I don't know how that can stand up in court. I mean, you're not taking somebody off the street. As I said, no gun held to her head and no cutlass held to her throat, so far as I know. So there may be some justification there, but I can't see it.
Dr. James, I'm going to move quickly to Rishi because I've got to get on that sea bridge. What time does the boat leave? Rishi. It doesn't matter. It's going to be delayed anyway. Rishi, weigh in on that for me, please.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the whole idea of being a chief magistrate, it's a pretty high position in the magistracy. And given the problems we have with the magistracy, I mean, it takes close to, if memory serves me correct, 7 years and stuff like that for cases to go through. And so all these things, I mean, again, for me, it goes back also to the question of what do you appoint, what's the criteria again to appoint such a senior person? And then you being a senior magistrate, senior jurist, as Dr. James said, what sort of ammunition or what sort of proverbial gun, it may not be a physical gun, but what sort of thing could they have put upon you that would have forced such a senior learned person to be able to do such a thing and sign a resignation letter that she seems to be saying that she was coerced to do. It does again, and the more you go into it, I mean, there's always two sides to the story. We're hearing her sides now, so I think again, it's now up to the CJ or the GLSC to come out now and put out in the public to me exactly what went on. Because we're hearing different stories, and that's the problem. You hear different stories from different people. In other words,
only full disclosure.
Only full disclosure has to be done. I mean, otherwise, you're going to hear pieces here, pieces there. And based on those pieces, people are going to formulate their opinions and justification.
I love what your organization does, Disclosure Today. Disclosure Today is the organization. You're going to have to keep hitting that wall for us. Don't disappear just yet. The funny thing is, Dr. James walked on there. I spoke to a senior criminal attorney this morning, and the first thing she said to me was, if you can be coerced into signing something wrong. Same thing you just said. Yeah. Doctor, let's go on the Bocas. I got to go there. We've got choices here. We can use...
You know I don't like the Bocas, right?
Me neither.
When I'm going up to Tobago, that is. Coming down is not a problem.
So here is the problem, if you can ever get up. Here is the problem. We've got the Spirit, the Express,
yes.
And we have now, what is it, the super fast, no, better not use super fast, the ferry,
we have a transporter.
The transporter, yes.
And we have another one too.
And we just brought in the ferry. Yes, we just brought in the ferry to assist. Doctor, the new board in the port, they're saying, look, we met a situation that was unsustainable. Couldn't pay this money, couldn't continue doing all of that. They basically put a gun to our head and asking for some conditions that we know would have not been to the benefit of the population of Trinidad and Tobago. So we terminated that. In the interim, in order to save us a lot of money over the long run and correct a problem that's been standing there for a long time, there is some dislocation and some inconvenience that will have to go on. Folks have to be patient. Is that asking too much? What is your take on the question of the sea bridge and the transport situation in Tobago that many say is not new?
Well, it's not new, but to answer the first part of your question, the board's position suggests that their priorities are different from the priorities of Tobago and probably the government, but Tobago. Because what they're saying is that we met bubble there. We met corruption, just as the Prime Minister has been saying, and we prefer to deal with this matter in such a way that we remove the bubble before we handle the problem of the inconvenience of what do you call it? The umbilical link that the sea bridge is between Trinidad and Tobago. For Tobago more than Trinidad. Of course, there are businesses in Trinidad who exist to make money from the sea bridge. But to the extent that Tobago has been left to be dependent upon the bridge in the sense of getting goods and services from Trinidad for Tobago to survive, and not only to survive in terms of having goods and services, but also the businesses that spring up around the port, that earn their livelihoods. They employ people, and who earn their livelihoods. What we are saying is that without recognizing that we have not been very good at handling corruption in this country. You were talking about the least trusting country, according to some survey. But we are not very good at jailing people. We are not good at convicting people for corruption. And we know corruption exists. But here is a board that is saying that was more important than sustaining the livelihood of the economy of Tobago.
Let me inject something here, Doctor, because one of the things is they were operating on a month contract basis, and the
you mean the superfast
glacier, and the claim is that they were now asking for a 3-year commitment or even a year.
That's
commitment.
not true. That's not true.
That they were asking for a longer commitment.
No. That the board did not know that was the case. The idea of a month-to-month contract did not just surface. It was there for a long time.
And they could have lived with that.
And there was an indication from the people that they were going to leave at least 8 months
to
before.
the old board, yes.
Oh, yes. They knew that the superfast galley, the owners were going, Transmed, I think they call them.
Transmed, yes.
They were going to move out. They took their time in finding a replacement. Yes? And then we learned that the corruption involved is $6 million, that the cost of getting the boat was about $7 million, and the people who were in charge said, we got $900,000. So you have to ask yourself where the other 6 went. The middleman got some money there. And that's part of the corruption, but that is not the important thing for me. Corruption is important. We don't have a good history of handling of prosecuting corruption in this country. I start off by saying that. And I say all of that to say this, that the board had its priorities wrong, and probably the executive as well, the cabinet. Why do I say this? Because it is well known the degree of heavy dependence the Tobagonian economy has on that bridge. And it has that dependence by political forethought. The PNM, in fact, is the most guilty of all the governments in respect of that dependence. Yes? The PNM has, shall we say, has presided over the continuation of that kind of dependence. And all that has happened now is that the fracas with the boat has laid it bare. And so the question that now arises, for me, one of the questions is, who should be in charge of the sea bridge? The law says the Tobago House of Assembly, by the way. But in pragmatic fact, it's the central government that is in charge.
Of everything.
Well, yes. Tobago is almost like a ward as it was in the 19th century. Yes? Now, so, you know one of the reasons for this, of course, is that the board that is in charge is comprised mostly of Trinidadians. There's only one person on the current board, at least, who represents Tobago. A guy called Tommy Elias from the Tobago Chamber or previously of the Tobago Chamber. All the others are Trinidadians. Yeah? To the extent that matters, the question of how well informed you are, how concerned you are about Tobagonian livelihood, Tobagonian health, Tobagonian, security, food security, and so on. To that extent, the decision makers do not say. The chief secretary, by the way, you hardly hear him because he realizes he doesn't have a voice. He can politicize. But is this chief secretary going to go against his prime minister? In public?
I want to ask you something, Doctor.
Yeah?
Would you countenance the new board who inherited the problems of the old one. Would you countenance if an agreement had gone into, let's say, a year, 2 years, paying this kind of money, as against breaking the neck of the problem that has been done now? This is not to minimize in any way what you have said. I accept that, and those who have been studying it and know how qualified you are to make the statement understand that. But would you have countenanced a continuation of what is clearly was the robbing of the exchequer here in Trinidad?
If I thought, and I don't have the evidence that the Prime Minister did have, but if I thought that somebody was juking out my eye, I would stop that. But that is not that's not my main point. My main point is that you had at least about 8 months to solve that problem. And the question is whether 8 months or so was sufficient for you to put a replacement, an adequate replacement in place. That's my issue. I think that the government had enough time. I think that the government slept on that matter. I think the Prime Minister came in as a fix-it man, the man who fixes fix everything man. And I don't like that kind of politics, by the way. But I'm just saying. And I also think that the question of who is in the kitchen feeding the heat should have suggested that perhaps the House of Assembly should have had a more hands-on role in this matter. Now, the Tobago Chamber of Commerce is very clear. You know what has happened. The Tobago Chamber has come out and warned that this was going to happen. And the government let it happen. And Dr. Rowley said, well, I'm a Tobagonian. You think I don't care? I don't doubt that he cares. The question is whether he went about it or has been going about it the right way.